So the story begins on July 29th of last year, 2024, where I made my first video, Storm King's intro, where I talked about what I was going to be doing on this channel, which is actually true, leading into my second thing where I also complained about how I obviously wasn't very happy with how I need to be verified in order to actually make long form videos, and also me talking about Rosebud, my favorite doodle. Next is Country Bomber Splush, one of my more better song covers. One of the only song covers that I haven't sung. Next up was, of course, What Should I Pick for Ty Goes Out Blues? And then I also defined my favorite word that I like to use a lot, Nessie. Nessied. Get Nessied. Then it's also me and a voice changer to get Hive and Mary's voices out before I actually decide to use my own voice, which leads into Storm Shard's intro. Hive and Mary made their first debut just in words. They couldn't even speak before then. Now they have their own voice actor, aka me. So then, so then I also talked about the clarification. Hive did an interview. Hive did an interview with me, or so, as I did an interview with myself with a voice changer. So if I do an interview like that again, I'm probably just going to sound exactly the same. The next was me going into Paper Mario, doing lyrics of the Steak Battle, one of my favorite battles in the entire game. Next was another Define the Word video where I defined the word juggled. I use that word a lot. It also comes from Castle Crashers, the people who know and the people who don't know. Then I went back to the talk show, the podcast, again for Mary of Storm Shards, and then began my first Splatfest. Surprisingly enough, Hive won on a coin flip. Then I made a 30-minute chess video that only had one view, which is kind of sad, but still. And then I decided to put Country Promise Rush into a translator few couple hundred times, and then it just came out as one solid mess. And then I talked about the two most recent Splatfests, which is, of course, Bread versus Rice versus Pasta and Grandfest, because, Grandfest was amazing. So then the Be Like series started with the chicken nugget going insane, I guess. And then next I talked about my live stream because I figured out how to work OBS. And then, of course, the winner of the Splatfest. Then I also made another Be Like for how Clipchamp, the thing that I'm using for my videos right now, is how it's bad for Roblox, which is obviously. The next one was a parody of how when you forget that you picked up a TMT trainer and now everything that happens is just really glitchy. And then so began my first reaction video for probably one of the worst songs in history. And then I also talked about two sitcoms that I watched. Pretty funny. I'm not gonna go into that. Ty Goes Out Blues, another good song cover that I made. And then I talked about how YouTube was a little stupid, can't remember why. Then I also made a tier list on the Kanto Pokemon, which of course I put Caterpie at the top and so Charmander, because those are two great Pokemon in my opinion. And then I talked about how the translator's not working, which was unfortunate at the time. And I also talked about YouTube playables plus my next video ideas. I'm reading the titles right now. Then I talked about shiny hunting simulators, and then began my first ever series, Stage Play September. Stage Play September, first a trailer, and then before I got into that, I decided to put Hive and Mary's descriptions in the chat GBT. They were a little accurate, but I then decided to make them canon because, they're not fully canon, but they're right. Then Hive and a translator made Ebb and Flow. I do not touch that at all because I don't really like it. I gotta remake it somehow. Next up was my first game theory. That's just a theory, a game theory about how the ghost in Luigi's Mansion passed away. And also, I talked about I actually don't know what this video is about. It just talks about some bad news. Was another Storm King. Thank you. That's probably because the 1,000 views I got, or because I got 10 subscribers. And then we begin Stage Play September, Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3. Silas was introduced in Episode 3. Silas is now a canon character of the story ever since Episode 3 came out. And then so begin Episode 4, Episode 5, Episode 7, and Episode 6. Episode 6, I decided to take away from the main story because, it doesn't really talk much about. Um, it doesn't really talk much about the story. It just talks about like a whole bunch of me's together. It just sounds awful. Then I talked about my first Discord server, some ideas for new series. Again, that's definitely true. And then it's out Storm. So then it's me, Storm Shards, and of course Silas chatting up. I guess after Stage of September was canceled, I think about rebooting it after a while. Then my first collab with Beat King OMG uh happened here, so that's great. And then a new character alert. This is for I believe the Jester. And then I made a new high voice, which kind of sucked and took me literally an hour to do on Audacity. It kind of sucked, honestly. And then the Jester gave advice. People like to watch it. I put a Maritime Memory over it because I thought it was funny. I liked the song too. And then I also put Tears of the Rainbow, classic song as well. And then I made the new Ogre Pawn series, and I also gave myself another new character, the Crimson Bandit. And then yeah, so then I also made a start to the storybook where this is actually I believe when I broke my leg, I think. So yeah, so I made a couple chapters of the book called Chapter Crimson, and then another one called Storm King's Insanity. That's a Halloween special, so it's not real, even though it might. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's not gonna be real. And then to follow the story, yeah. So then to go back to it, Dementio. I also made Dementio a kind of a pseudo canon character. Like he's not really much of a character, but I still want to make him like canon to the story that I'm making. So yeah, so he of course reacts to the Google lawsuit not being too good. And then I have another Storm King thank you because I got a lot of views on this one short. I'll go into shorts in a little bit. Then here is my first ever spoken cover. Well, my first ever spoken cover for Splat Attack Octo, which is kind of cool. And then I got a capture card, so I got to do Super Mario Overdrive, which is just me backwards long jumping up a thing of stairs. Also, Sword and Shield, the fifth birthday of Sword and Shield. I decided to do some shiny hunts because why not? And then I got copyright claimed for a stream. Excuse me, I got copyright claimed for a stream because of the music. That was honestly my bad. I also made I also made a song cover on it for because it was heavily inspired by Juno songs, copyright strike music. And then I, did a be like of how about like YouTube ad blockers. They're annoying. Okay, I got an ad like when I actually started this whole thing. I got an ad block last night too. Hate those kind of ads. Then I made another one for Thanksgiving, the Harvest Festival from New Leaf, one of my favorite games. And then I also made a Splatfest competition. Of course, I didn't get anything like that. And then the deceivers that most people would know are in a therapy session. This is kind of just like a quick little jab at a certain one of them. I won't say which one it is, but it's one who's an actual real person. Once again, like he's just a deceiver. I'm not trying to do anything hate like that, of course. And then I made a New Year's thing for New Year's, and then dimensional hopping began. Dimensional hopping trailer has the most amount of views on my channel currently. And then I came up with a Stage Play September prequel where it's Silas' story and how Primary Cyclone was a thing for a little bit. It also introduces Enem and Payne. So I began episode 1, Fry's newest idea, because I like the art from the chocolate. And so I began first Hive and Mary's spoken non-translator voice. That's why yeah, so this thing will hopefully not get canceled like Stage of September. Then episode 2, episode 3, and then a letter from Storm King where I talk about, how I met Sally Strings and all that. And I'm nearing the 10-minute mark. I'm gonna be here a bit. Okay, so then I talked about the letter how I got to talk to Sally Strings. So Hive and Mary, they're kind of. I made each of my characters a little bit based off of me, like not 100%, but you get the idea. So Hive and Mary are kind of huge fans of Sally Strings as much as I am, obviously. And then here is Hive Secret Admirer. I don't know how much I can say because I know a certain someone who just really overhypes it for some reason. I like the video, but not that much. Basically, it's about Hive getting a secret. Hive has a secret admirer, obviously, and then I began another new Discord server for a new series I'm working on, Splatumheimer, which sounds kind of, which doesn't sound that good when I say it out loud, but I think it's going to be a good series once we have everything in order. And then became DH Fest. Hive is in a heavy lead with 3 votes, which is surprising to me because I don't know Hive had that many fans, or any fans at all. I hope they're not watching this right now. Well, I mean, they're obviously watching this because I'm recording this as I go. So I already passed the 10-minute mark, so I gotta rechange the title, so I can't do Storm King's entire channel in 10 minutes. Then began episode 4, Molded Biohazard. That's a major lore plot in the story. DH episode 5, and then Ecoplos' greatest performer, and Dimensional Hopping episode 6. They kind of are from the same thing. It's where like Hive goes into unconscious form, and Mary has to like bust her out of there. Yeah, so a little bit of a spoiler for all those, and then finally for our, let me think, how many were there? 85, I think. This is my 85th video, all the way. So this is April 8th, yesterday, where this is Enum's Wrath, which talks a little bit about Enum and why he's evil in the first place. I don't blame him, honestly. I honestly kind of teared up whenever I write stories that are like kind of sad, like for Silas's story back in episode 4. That was kind of sad for the most part. I also had to. I kind of teared out when I was trying to voice Silas, and also I was trying to voice Adam in this episode too. So that's basically all the long form videos as of to date. So let's go to the shorts. I guess the shorts are kind of small though. The shorts, of course, there's not a lot. There's a short about Breaking Bad, trying to make her first short, obviously, where it's basically just Country Bomber's Blush, but Jesse Pinkman sings the first line of it. And then I actually started my first Splatfest, and then of course Time Goes Out Blues, and then I also started off Storm King News. That kind of rhymed a little bit, where I talk about first the Roblox ban, and then Don't Fight a Jigglypuff, how Stage Play September will come out as a breaking news kind of thing. Rex Cyclone breaking into the theater. The next day, me after me and B King did the collab. Of course, there was no audio there, so I had to go wrong. And then Tears of the Rainbow had their introduction. Montezuma's Revenge was a pretty short I like to make. Oh man. So then the Splatfest was. Oh my goodness. So the Splatfest results were, of course, Rosemary won with a heavy lead. I made somebody laugh when I showed them that. That was my whole point. And then I talked about YouTube inspirations. YouTube inspirations, they kind of suck. I'm not going to lie to you. And then finally, we have my last short, Sans. I was trying to make sort of like one of those random like Splatoon AU things where you like make like a Splatoon character in the Sans. Because I thought about doing like one of those fancy covers, but of course, I don't have the skills for that right now. I mean, I have IBS Paint. That's what I've been using to. That's what I use to make the Hive Unconscious thing. And finally, I have the 4 live streams, one that was copyrighted, and the 3 that were mostly the same subject, except for the last 2, which were on New Year's, and then all my community posts, all of those as well. And that's the entire story in 15 minutes.